Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we are going to be talking about FUGA, Melodies of Steel. This game's story reminds me an awful lot of certain anime like Robotech or Gundam or something along those lines. You have a group of children and they are caught up in a war. They end up finding some kind of a super weapon and use that super weapon to fight back against the enemy. There are some differences, obviously. In this one, everybody is an anthropomorphic dog, which is kind of adorable in many parts. And you also have the kids kind of struggling with not realizing what's going on. Like, they know that there's a war happening, they know that their families have been taken away to some labor camp on a different part of this continent or island or wherever, and they are just kind of figuring things out as they go. As you progress through the game, you meet more children who have been orphaned in some way or have been driven out of their home because of the war, and they become more of your party members. It's really good, believe it or not. It's a very, very interesting story. You have each of these kids who, throughout the game, suffer some of the horrors of war. Like, they become tired, they get injured, they lose their will to fight, they deal with loss when that happens. There's a lot going on in this. And the fact that they're anthropomorphic dogs is kind of besides the point, but it's still a very, very gripping story. Like, I was getting really into it while I was playing it for this. I will talk a little bit more about this, but you do have like a super weapon on your tank. And the way this super weapon works is you have to sacrifice one of your party members in order to get it to work. And that's kind of forced upon you early in the game, so it can sort of show you what's happening. And the narrator for this whole thing, the narrator and tutorial, kind of explains why that happened and whatnot. And then they roll back time so that you can avoid that, which I thought was very interesting. But it creates this very interesting dynamic where you have the ammunition to fire your super weapon happens to be all of the characters that you may or may not have connected with along the way, but have built up relationships amongst themselves. So it's a very interesting way of doing things, and I really like it. So I mentioned the super weapon earlier. That's called the soul cannon, and it's kind of like a race against time to avoid using it whenever possible. So that's really the whole thing on the soul cannon. It only becomes active when your party is about to be defeated or appears to be defeated in some way. It's like a weapon of last resort. But anyway, let's get into more of this. This is a side-scrolling tactical RPG where you have your giant tank and it is moving along a fixed path. The path does branch in some parts, but for the most part, if you pick like the normal route, you're going to be locked on those events on the normal route. In some ways, it feels a little bit like FTL in that way, but there's more to it. Like, there's more heart to this story than there is with FTL. So you have your giant tank, and it has 3 weapons on it. Those weapons can be either a machine gun, a grenade launcher, or a cannon at the point that I've been playing. And each of these weapons is determined by the crew member that you have manning those guns. So if you have a certain character, they might be using a machine gun. If you swap them out, they'll be using a grenade launcher. You can do this at any point during the battle, but your choice becomes locked for a few turns. So if you run into some air units or something with heavy armor, you kind of have to plan out what your party's going to be, especially on that first turn. So these are all turn-based attacks, and overall, I think the gameplay is really solid. You do have some intermissions when you can upgrade your equipment, upgrade your armor. that sort of thing, like increase the amount of action points that you have, because each of your characters, as they level up individually, they get more skills along the way. So, yeah, there's more RPG elements in this than another game that would be something along, but that would kind of be similar to this. You also have, during those intermissions, you can fish for scraps, which is how you upgrade everything, and you can also grow food, which can influence how your characters act in battle. Certain foods will increase your attack, your defense, that sort of thing. I am really digging the graphics in this game. They almost appear like they're watercolor in some spots, like you're playing a moving picture, a moving watercolor picture. It looks really great, especially the backgrounds where you'll have just all these different colors. They look a little bit more natural in some things, but they're opposed by these giant tanks that are running through this place. You also have some cutscenes where there's not like, these aren't full motion video cutscenes or CGI or anything like that. They're usually still images with text going on. So, yeah, would it look better if they had some other types of cutscenes? Yeah, probably. But I think the way they do it here, it reminds me a lot of older games where you just had like in-game graphics, or your characters would just stop. They would talk, and then kind of like an animated JPEG or something would pop up for them to respond with, like different reactions depending on the text and that sort of thing. Overall, the graphics are very good. I really enjoy this art style. The enemy tanks kind of look a little bit menacing in some ways, which is good because they're the bad guys. And you know they're the bad guys because they're doing bad things. And your characters all just look really wholesome. I mentioned that they're anthropomorphic dogs, and yeah, to say this nicely, I kind of want to play fetch with a lot of them. Especially some of them, which remind me of my parents' dog in some ways. Anyway, the graphics are really great in this. I was really enjoying it while I was playing it. It's just a fun game to look at. This game has been a lot of fun so far. Oh, well, okay. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far. I really enjoy these tactical RPGs. I think they're just something that doesn't break into the mainstream as often as they probably should, because most people just, I don't know. It's the same thing with a lot of RPGs, especially like the turn-based ones, where some people just can't really get into them. But I really think the story in this is just absolutely wonderful. It was really carrying me through, especially in the tutorial, which does go on for a while. And like every other tutorial I've ever played through, it gets a little annoying at times where you're like, okay, I get it. Can I just play the game now? That's not really a fault of the game. That's just me testing my patience on certain things. But yeah, if you're looking for an RPG, this is a very good one. It is on Game Pass now, so that's always good. That's how I played it. But you can also get it on Steam, and it's probably on all the other systems as well. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.